Well, good day, my Telos podcast friends. It's a pleasure to see you today. Today's show is brought to you by Telos. This is actually funded by a Telos worker proposal system. So shout out to Telos. This is the Telos podcast, and we're making it happen. Pretty pumped on what Telos is doing right now. This is also brought to you by EOS Writer, eoswriter.io. If you haven't peeped the scene on what's going on with all this rad news that's quickly updated, it's transparent. We've got original video content, we've got original articles, and it's one of and quickly becoming the main source for EOS news media, where you can get up to the moment updates that is real news, and it's rad. And Brendan Bloobers even gave a shout out, or a couple shout outs to EOS Writer. So if you're looking for a cool media source, EOS Writer is what time it is, my friends. And if you hear this silky smooth sound coming through your earballs right now, it is time to check out our sound engineer. His name's Scott, and he's been doing rad things, but he's also an EOS engineer, and he has a game that he's building that's kind of crazy. It's called Hybrid.Games. Spores is both a puzzle box and a mental transport. You'll be sent through immersive field recordings to collect unique digital items. These items, called spores, can only be generated when users navigate the audio haptic landscapes and reveal them with physical motions of their phone. How will you know which movements are revealed the spore? You'll have to listen and feel for clues. Looking at your screen won't help. So if you want to get early on an early bird list for Hybrid.Games, go to Hybrid.Games, put your email in, and wait like I am for this awesome game to come out. And thanks, Scott. So today's show is pretty rad. We're talking to the Wordproof team, and Wordproof was recently at the Berlin WordCamp, which is a big meeting with 2,500 people from the open source community for WordPress, which is running a ton of the internet. And so the fact that our blockchain, this Telos, this thing built on Telos, is now a plugin for something like WordPress is massive reach. We talk all about that. We talk about Matt Mullenweg, who invented WordPress. We talk about Brendan Bloomer, who has basically given an endorsement to this WordPress idea. He said that any information or articles in the future, if they're not time-stamped on the blockchain, that people aren't going to trust them. So this is the direction things are going. We talk some high-level philosophy, as always, because I love to get into that. We talk universal basic income type of stuff. This is a wide-ranging show. Even if you've heard Sebastian before, we get deep here, and so it's rad. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Sebastian, the founder of Wordproof.io.
You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain.
The Telos Podcast.
You stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Good to see you, Sebastian. Welcome to the show today. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I am fantastic. So what's the most interesting thing going on in Telos right now?
One of the things I really like, and I don't know the exact details, is the economic plan. I don't know the exact details, but what I really like is how they redistribute the funds who were reserved for other people to the ecosystem, to grow the ecosystem. That's a strategy. I saw it with EOS. They are doing the same now. They have a part of their funds which they will redistribute to the ecosystem. And Telos is doing the same. They use the reserve funds for the exchanges to grow the ecosystem instead of using inflation for that. So looking forward how that will unfold the coming months and years.
Yeah, that is fantastic. I actually just had the team from Telos UK on the first Telos podcast number 1, this is podcast number 2, and they went deep into the Telos Economic Development Fund, and it is really cool. I mean, it's possible that they'll be able to Telos will be able to operate without inflation for quite a long time, which is a huge boost to the chain, as well as the Work Proposal Fund. This Telos podcast is funded by Telos. I think that Wordproof is also funded by Telos. So that's
It started with we have more funding now. We have 5 people working on the project, but the early start is totally funded by Telos. So we're really proud to be. It was the first upfront software, so software that wasn't being made before. The first upfront software funding effort on Telos. So a blockchain funding new software makes the production of software so inclusive. So yeah, we're really proud to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy to really think about that concept is a blockchain is funding development within the ecosystem. It's one of the first times we've seen that happen. And I know that back in the day with BitShares, that was one of Dan's dreams kind of was, okay, we're going to have this worker proposal fund and this thing is going to grow itself. We're going to pay for the developers to develop the chain and the chain is going to make more money and then pay for more developers. It's going to grow on itself. But what happened in BitShares was that the whales didn't want to give up their money and pay for the developers to develop BitShares, so it kind of stalled out. So it's rad to see it coming to life, breathing kind of energy into the Telos blockchain the way that it is. So yeah, it's cool to see this working. Actually,
it's all a lot of it's all. We could say experimental at this moment. We're learning every day. We're part of this. And it's so great to see how it unfolds. We have a good inflow of projects, at least that's what I see. And looking forward to see how this unfolds the coming years.
Yeah, it's exciting times. And it's exciting times for Wordproof too. I got a chance to dig back in. You and I had a podcast. I mean, it was a while ago now when Wordproof was just first coming out. And now, getting into phase 2, there's been huge developments and Wordproof is getting really exciting. We talked about EOS Writer, how we are, I'm part of the EOS Writer team. Yeah. And we are trying to be one of the first full kind of inclusive media sources that's including timestamping for all of our articles. So, I mean, Wordproof is one of those things that's actually being used out there right now, which is pretty rad.
And you're an early discoverer of a lot of things. Number one, the EOS Writer was one of the first timestamps together with everything EOS and the Telos UK guys. Yep. But you were the first one interviewing me about Wordproof at all. So thank you so much for the opportunity by Dan to cover Wordproof. That was a great opportunity for me and us as being Wordproof.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, the reason I do the podcast is because I like finding things first and like digging deep into them and knowing what's really going on in the ecosystem. So, yeah, Wordproof has been one that's pretty cool to see develop over just the last few months. It's been getting pretty impressive. Why don't you, just for anyone who doesn't know exactly what Wordproof is, kind of concisely tell people what Wordproof does? Yeah,
of course. The internet, as we know it, is a great place. The last 25 to 30 years, we perfectly organized everything there is, and we did that in a user-friendly way. But at the same time, we have some problems as well with inclusivity, with monopolies, with data protection. Even the biggest corporates are not able to protect our data, and also the content part. We have fake news, plagiarism, revisionism, and that's our terrain. We want to fix the things that are not right with content. And Brandon Bloomer, he said, in 5 years from now, if you don't timestamp your articles, you're going to be considered a fraud. Or if you don't put your content on chain, that's revisionism. And that's 2 years ago, so we have 3 years left. We, as Wordproof, we bring the timestamping and putting the content on chain. We help the publisher to protect their content on chain. Some say notarized. And we help the readers of content, the watchers of content, to do their due diligence. Where does this content come from? Is it been tampered with? And we give them tools to do due diligence, all to move from an internet where we say, nah, it's from the internet, to an internet where we can say, I trust this because I can check where it comes from and if someone takes responsibility for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's seems like a simple concept, but it runs pretty deep. This idea that you could trust things that you read on the internet, and you can track the edits and who wrote them and what their reputation is, or those things are important. And I think Brendan Bloomer put it perfectly. If you're not timestamping your stuff, you're not going to have any credibility in the future.
What do you have to hide? That will be the next question. In a few years, that's, hey, you don't timestamp. And what we will, what we want to move toward, but what will eventually happen is that nowadays, if you don't have HTTPS or a secured internet connection on your website, your browser says this is not secure. Mm-hmm. And we will work towards a web where it's not timestamped. There will be there will be red bells, alarm bells when something is not timestamped. We should move towards web where that's the standard.
Mm-hmm. So this is like one of the goals is to help people claim and protect their content. How does timestamping help people claim and protect?
The first tool we built is Wordproof Timestamp, and the first tool we built in the timestamp range is a WordPress plugin, which everybody can download for free from the WordPress dashboards. There are tens of millions of them. And what we do is we hash the content. So what hashing is, it's a one direction process. So here we have the content, 1,000 words. It's been hashed. And with the hash, you can't go back to the content from the hash, but when you change one thing, one letter, one whatever, then the hash changes. So what we do is we store this hash on the blockchain in a transaction, and so everybody can check, hey, was this really what the content was at that moment? And they can put the content in hash checker. We have that on our website, but we're totally open and transparent in how the hash is being calculated. So everybody can, from the certificate, we make a timestamp certificate. From that certificate, you can check if the content is legit and if there's nothing tampered with.
Okay, so make sure that people haven't gone back and changed basically history or changed what the article said in the past.
Exactly, and how it works for the publisher is just they publish their content in their content management system, and next they do sign the content on the blockchain. Then a pop-up comes, scatter, for example. They say allow, and that's it. So it's less than 2 or 3 seconds work. Okay.
And what's how many people are using it currently?
We have a Word token, and that's on more than, from my head, 300 addresses at this moment. But some people claimed the token but didn't use them. We have it's in the range between 100 and 200, I guess.
Okay. And does it when people claim? Well, explain what the token is, because I think that's new since that we talked last, and that was interesting to see the Word token.
We have a Word token. And everybody can get free words. I love how those words team up. And on Telos and on the EOS at this moment. And everybody can claim 100 free words. 10 for just being you. 80 for saying, hey, this is my email address. So in exchange for email. And 10 more if they put 2 timestamps in less than 10 days. Okay. And what it is, at this moment, 1 word is 1 timestamp, and for the first 5 timestamps you do on a day, you get 1 word back. So why the Word token? For now, it's an anti-spam measurement. What we saw during the testing phase is that some people, they claimed thousands of content parts, but some of them were probably not of their own. Mm-hmm. And we got a lot of questions. Hey, how do you prevent people stealing content? And then we came up with Word as a mechanism to avoid people spamming the network. And in the future, what will happen is you have a simple timestamp, so that's just the hash, and then you put it on chain. But there will be higher levels of timestamp. So, for example, what you possibly will need is that you put not only the hash, but also the content on chain. So that costs some storage. So probably that will cost more words to do something like that. So it's good that people get already used to the Word concept. But we don't want Word to be a speculation thing or something. So it won't be on exchanges soon. It's anti-spam measurement. And so number 1 is really the basic timestamp. Then we have, hey, the content as well. It could be centralized, which is not that cool, but some solutions don't have to revisions as WordPress has. But you can also want to put the whole content on chain. Another next step there is the non-fungible token. So a fungible token for the watchers, a fungible token is like Telos itself or the EOS or Bitcoin. It doesn't matter if you have Bitcoin number 1 or Bitcoin number 3000. But a non-fungible token is kind of a unique transferable token, which can be used for tickets in concerts or whatever. And in our case, it will be used as a content certificate. So with when you claim your content, you could create a non-fungible certificate which proves the ownership of your content, which can later be a basis for licensing your content or for selling your content.
Oh, that's interesting. So you would actually then almost have like a physical or you have this digital representation of your content that you could trade or maybe even sell parts of and things like that if you have some really popular articles and things like that. Okay. And
imagine a world where the search engines take account of who has the non-fungible token. One big problem in the world of search engines is the duplicated content. So two people publishing the same content. Imagine a publisher. You have most publishers, they have multiple titles. And what you see is they have large titles and small titles with a lot of content. So the content from the small titles are republished after 1 week on the big titles. But Google indexes the big titles better. So what you see there is that the big titles always win from the small in the search engines. But with something, when timestamping is web standard connected to a non-fungible token, then finally small matters again, because the non-fungible token shows, hey, it was first here and now it's on the other title. And in the non-fungible, you can say, hey, it's published on this big title as well, but we allowed that. That's legit instead of plagiarism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and then those small titles, they can get, people can get paid for when there's a lot of news aggregators. So the news aggregators that are pulling these articles from all over the place, they can still be lending value back to the people who created the content, as opposed to just being a news aggregator and stealing all the traffic. Yeah, that's huge. I mean, there's that. I heard this funny thing. Someone said that the internet used to be in infinite web of basically articles and things you could explore and find all, and now it's just 3 websites that are all reposting each other's memes. So it's that can take us back to that more distributed model. That's cool. I didn't know about. I hadn't heard that thought before. That's cool.
That's so that's one of the things we work on, and you can iterate to everything else. For example, making a paywall for your content. It can all start with NFTs, but also licensing of WordPress themes, WordPress plugins, and but we start with what is work. You can choose what kind of timestamp you will. The possibilities will evolve and grow.
Mm-hmm. It'll keep evolving. Yeah, it's funny to think that just how open and wild the internet has been the last 10 or 15 years as far as content goes. Content goes onto the internet, and then it's just basically you've set it free into the universe, and you're never going to see it again, and people will be using it however they want to kind of monetize it. But I think someday with tools like this, we'll look back and say, oh my gosh, you remember when you used to write an article and get almost zero credit for it? Like, that's cool to be able to attach it, track it through an NFT and kind of through its life. What things that you create, you hold on to again.
Whatever, yeah.
Or sell it, yeah. That's very cool.
It's, for example, you with the EOS or Telos podcast, you can sell the shows after. It's kind of your, how do you call it, content real estate?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's that's kind of the leverage of digital media, is that you create something one time, but then you have the opportunity to kind of distribute it over and over and over. But that leverage is taken away from creators a lot of the time because there's so much plagiarism, because it's so easy to just grab something off the internet and reuse it yourself. So yeah, that's a big shift, really big shift.
And for example, one of the things in Europe people discussing is it might be that it's not allowed anymore to just link to articles. Then you have to make an agreement with the people who wrote it. But it's that's a strange dynamic. What will happen there? Because I want my pages to be spread as much as possible. So, for example, if Facebook has to make an agreement with me, with my companies, to be able to let the users of the platform share my content, that won't happen. That's hard, or that's silly, or that's not workable. And what we can do in the timestamp standard is say, hey, you can always link to this content. We like that. Or if you want to do revenue share, or if you have to do revenue share, you can do this to this address. So we, in the NFT or in the timestamp, we can say, hey, this is the infrastructure for paying us if you want or need to do so.
Yeah. So to automate all that with kind of smart contracts behind the scenes you don't want to slow the internet down. You don't want to slow the transfer of information down. You just want to, for it to be transparent and for people to be able to protect their work. And you definitely, if you're writing articles, you want as many people as possible to read them. So you don't want to slow that down. But you would like to, if someone's making a lot of money off it, share in that revenue, so.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So we're not in favor or against the laws, but we did it we did a GDPR plugin in WordPress. We talked about it in the last episode. Mm-hmm. What we can do, we're not in favor of or against laws, but we can provide the infrastructure. On a lot of topics, blockchain can bring the infrastructure to make things like GDPR or the upload filter workable for real people like you and me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you guys, did you implement the GDPR plugin on WordPress? Is that up now?
There's no combination yet between the GDPR and the Wordproof timestamp, but there might be soon.
Okay, cool. Tell people what GDPR is, just for anyone listening who might not be familiar.
Yeah, GDPR is a change in law since 2 years. Is it 2? Yeah, since. Yeah, it's a change in law where not the inhabitant of Europe is totally responsible for their privacy, but more of the organizations. So it was a change in infrastructure and privacy. So people from Europe, they're more easily able to, for example, let their data erase on platforms. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, platforms, organizations, it was really hard to comply with the GDPR law because they had to do some really deep-going technical changes in their websites, in all the tools they're using with. It's a totally paradigm shift in privacy.
Yeah, so hypothetically, people in Europe should be able to go in and erase their private data off of websites and servers and things like that. That's the goal, right?
Yeah, but there's a big paradox because every company should, for example, have and collect all the invoices, all the administration. So on one hand, the inhabitants of Europe, they have the right to be erased, but on the other side, the organization must have all those invoices and administration. So there are some paradoxes there.
Yeah, we'll see how that all plays out. There's so many brand new things going on. Even stuff like that's a big experiment. Well, we never know.
And for GDPR and blockchain, that's a really funny thing to work together because everything on blockchain is permanent. So there are two people there. The GDPR and blockchain is impossible camp. But on the other side, you have the GDPR is the only way, blockchain is the only way to make blockchain is the only way to make GDPR work, because they say, hey, a web shop, for example, if you buy something in a web shop, then and you give the data to the web shop, for the first time, they need to have that data because they need to collect your money, they need to send you the product, but after, and there's warranty. So, for example, the first 90 days, there's warranty. And so it's in my favor as a buyer of a product that the web shop has my data so they can check if my warranty is still there. But if those 90 days are over, in whose favor is it that the web shop has my data? Probably only in the favor of the web shop, because they can do marketing, they can do sales. But if I don't want that, then maybe it's not in my benefit that they still have it. So with how cool would it be if the web shop doesn't just record every customer data, but what happens if I give them just a consent to use my data via the blockchain, and after the 90 days are over, or if after 23 days I'm pretty sure I don't need my warranty anymore, yeah, I can pull back my consent. So the web shop doesn't have customer records and stuff like that, but the only thing they have is a sum of all the consents of people they worked with.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. And it puts a lot of the control back in the consumer's hands of where their information is going.
Hey, I can say as a consumer, hey, if they pay me 10 cents a day to keep my data, as long as they pay 10 cents a day, I'm fine with them having my information.
Mm-hmm,
so also there's logic. The question is always, in whose favor is it that there's access to data?
Yeah. And data is an interesting thing because a lot of people aren't too, there's the masses, I would say, aren't too worried about their data being out there. The hitch is that they want a little bit of control or just some say over it, and possibly some sort of compensation for the value that's being extracted there. So like you're saying, at 10 cents a day, maybe even a penny a day in some cases, people say, yeah, have it, I don't care. I'll give it to 1,000 corporations at a penny a day, and I'll make a few $1,000s a year off my information. A lot of people would take that. And
that's GDPR. Most people hated GDPR, or still do, and I like the intention of GDPR, that we say, hey, as most people don't care too much about privacy, let's make the organizations a bit more responsible for it instead of the people themselves.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So give the people better tools to protect themselves. And not everybody takes responsibility about privacy. They have other things to worry about.
Yeah. And I had the Uncloak guys on. They're the cybersecurity team. And it was just interesting to hear how much money is required to go into cybersecurity to protect all this data, and then what resources companies actually have to pay for that. And there's really seems like this gap in the middle of these mid-sized businesses that just don't really make enough money. They might have a database of a few million people, but they don't have enough revenue to pay the hundreds of thousands of dollars that it takes to actually protect that through cybersecurity. So there's like kind of this big gap. So
once something went wrong,
mm-hmm.
there are always incidents necessary before people check it.
Yeah. So there's kind of two ways to approach this giant gap in the middle. One is make cybersecurity cheaper and easier and more efficient, which Uncloaked is trying to do. The other is to say, you can't, if you can't protect it, you just can't be holding that much information. Sorry, like get rid of it because you don't have the money to protect it. So it's like if I had a ton of gold sitting in my front yard and it's just me with a BB gun. It's like, well, you don't have the resources to protect that gold. Like you're better off not having it, dude. So
it's so hard. That discussion is really hard because last time we had the discussion about how a worker proposal makes the funding of open source software inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
So open source, it's about the best technology available to everyone. But then the production of open source is only for the happy few who are financially free because they have the time and the space to create software, which takes a lot of time. Then we have the worker proposal, which makes it possible to, upfront funding it. So the people, without being financially free, you can work on open source software. And now we have the next step. Hey, if you don't have the money to protect your data, you're not allowed to work with data anymore, which will kill a lot of business on the other side.
Yeah, that's so do you think the GDPR plays into that? I mean, is that what GDPR is doing, is saying if you don't have the ability to protect this data, like it's cutting out a lot of players from it, or what?
I know a lot of people who are in the AI business, and one of the problems they have is they can't get started because they are able to make the algorithms, but they're not able to get the trust to use real data to train it. And sorry, what was the question? The GDPR.
Well, no, that is kind of the question. Is where does this, where's that leave kind of the free market for people to experiment with big data if they don't really have the trust or the ability to have access to it? Yeah. So.
Yeah. Open source is often about initiatives starting bottom up instead of top down. Everything top down should protect their data better, maybe, because they do it with a big group. And open source often starts small. WordPress, empowering 1/3 of the web now, starts as a small blog, and somebody was publishing, Matt and a friend of him. And then he said, hey, the software, this could be useful for others. So he put the software online. Somebody else said, hey, that's cool, but it's cool, it's okay, but I want to improve it, put it back. And from there, a snowball started. And it ended up where we are now with WordPress, but it started bottom up. And I think as long as things start small, you might get away with not protecting your data too good, but that's a dangerous thing to say. Yeah.
Well, those grassroots, I think what bigger picture, what blockchain chains like Telos give the opportunity for these grassroots movements to start and then kind of claw their way up through usefulness, through the need for that to be developed. So, it's cool to see that. And again, just hitting on the Telos worker proposal system, it's cool to see that thrive. It's cool to be a part of that. Both of us are funded by Telos, and it's cool to see a blockchain that's been put out there that's funding actual things to be built and produced on it. That self-funding mechanism is a pretty grand experiment. I'm lucky to be a part of it.
and I'm so looking forward to see how this evolves on other blockchains in the OCO ecosphere, because in a way we have, of course, the worker proposal, but also a UBI-ish solution is also, you could say, a worker proposal for people, for inhabitants of the world. Not too much, because everybody who gets the same amount, but once they opt in. But I'm looking forward to see how this unfolds. Blockchain funding people in doing stuff.
Yeah, and an example of that UBI, as far as Telos goes, they have the Acorns program. And I think it's acorns.fun is the website. But basically, you go to that website and then you do a minimum amount of to show that you're competent on a blockchain. It's like set up a wallet address and send some money or something like that. So you set up a Squirrel account, so you have like Brandon Squirrel or whatever, it's and then when you set that up, then you start getting a UBI. You basically get a payment for showing that you've been competent and you have a certain competence level on the blockchain. So that paying people for action or for adding value or to be a part of something is a crazy concept. And a lot of the blockchains have wanted to try worker proposals out, but it's a tough leap to make. There's so many questions that a lot of blockchains are like, no, I don't want to try it. But it's cool to see Telos go for it, so we can see what happens with it. Someone needs to try these things.
Yeah, and let's see. One of the things Dan Larimer once said is, he said, there's not one competition on which blockchain will do the UBI, because that will centralize UBI.
Mm-hmm.
The UBI that will exist or will unfold is a sum of the UBI-ish solutions on every blockchain there is. So the sum of it will be the UBI.
Yeah.
So the voice tokens, we have the Acorn in this case, we have the, no, not the worker proposal, but that has process with voting, but the sum of all UBIs on all blockchain in the world, that will create a UBI. Then it's really decentralized as well. So it's not like,
and that solves one of the main issues that problem when you say UBI, the main like issue that their gut reaction is some sort of like welfare state. Well, I don't want people to just be given money for nothing, but when you think of UBI as this decentralized solution where there's maybe 10 or even 20 or 100 different UBI sources, you have to do a lot of kind of work or effort or understanding or involvement to be a part of that UBI. So it's not this something for nothing that people really push back on, which makes that version of UBI pretty cool too.
Yeah, those discussions are always really hard, and it's a big topic in the Netherlands. You have a guy who's called Rutger Bregmans, and he wrote multiple books on the topic, the universal basic income. Now he calls it different. Let's see how it translates in English. It's called the inhabitant dividend something. It's more positive, but
okay.
Well, we're experimenting with frames on UBI or URI in the Netherlands, and I really want to see how things like that work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, inhabitants dividends. That's a good way to put it. I like it. I think people are trying to think of different approaches to get away from this. Universal basic income now has people automatically think they know what it is. They close their minds off when they hear it. So you have to call it something different.
And there are a lot of upsides as well, but probably we shouldn't do the discussion. But let's start there. All people on the working floor will be more motivated. So let's not dive in a UBI discussion. But I'd really love to see a world where, if we put things right, the coming 10 years, not all of us have to work. And there are a lot of people who like to work. Let's see what happens. Blockchain can free us.
Well, to me, I have this discussion with my friends, and they, people do have a need to work. There's something in us that likes to work or likes to be productive or likes to work on projects. My thought is that we will work on, people have that inside them. And so just because I don't have to do some specific work I don't like doesn't mean I'm not going to work. Like, I'm going to go do something creative. I'm going to do a podcast, or I'm going to do something that I would still do this whether I had to or not. And I think most people have that in them. And so that's where I kind of see a case for UBI as and done correctly. So, yeah.
One of the concepts, Rutger Bregmans, he did a television show about it in Dutch, but one of the concepts he explored was that the inhabitant dividend, it starts at the year 18, but it always starts with a party, not a baby shower, but your inhabitant dividend party. So you have all your friends and family come to you, and you explain them what you will add to this world. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a worker proposal with cycles which are going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I mean, it's an approach. I mean, people, it's a mindset thing, I think, is kind of the point. And the point of technology, when we think about just technology in general, the point of technology is to give us more freedom as human beings. It's to let us be more of our whatever natural creative selves we can possibly be.
If we do it right.
Yeah, and if we do it right. So I like when we think of ways for technology to free us, to give us more freedom, to give us more space to operate creatively and build and make beautiful things. That's what technology is for. So far, we've been really focused on making technology to make us more efficient and productive so we can work harder. I think we've gone far enough that direction. Now I want it to give us more time to interact as humans and create.
Well said. And we have to be okay with that our neighbor gets more time too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yep. Well, that's a beautiful conversation. So I'm glad that we touched on that. I'm always interested to have these kind of philosophical conversations, because that's a lot of us that are in the beginning of this blockchain thing are in it on a lot of philosophical reasons as well. So I think people are always interested in these topics.
And that's one of the first things I saw on EOS in 2017 was with Grok Pierce. We can shift from a world of me to a world of we. And It sounds really philosophical, but that's one of my biggest drivers here in the ecosystem to make that shift to a we economy or whatever you name it. But blockchain has the ability to move us there. At least we have the ability with blockchain as a tool.
Yeah, we're not operating in a zero-sum game like we've had to in the past, where I have to get this meat and feed my family, or else you're going to get it and I'm not going to get to eat. Now there is enough resources and enough technology and enough human value that we can all get by really happily. So now it's just going to take a mental shift to, everyone can still work hard. I love working hard. I love people who build stuff. It's not, people always think that it's about, people want to lay around and dance in fields and shit and be lazy. I don't think that's what happened. I think that we'd all get to work. Yeah. I think we'd all get to work hard on things that we actually love, and that's the point. So. Yeah.
And for one of the things he said, Rutger Bregmans as well, he said, one of the nicest things you have when you are doing well is the ability to invest not only money but also your time. That not every hour is filled with something you have to do, but that you have the ability to invest some of your money or most of it, some of your time, to the things you think that are important to the world. He said the better world starts with all people having the ability to invest some of their time.
Absolutely. So, on that note, you had a big meetup with a bunch of people who have been building WordPress, and I think it was in Berlin. And so a bunch of kind of like-minded people coming together and talking about WordPress and Wordproof. Tell a little bit about what that was like, and I think talk about Matt Mullenweg there also.
Yeah. Who Matt Mullenweg is the founder of WordPress, the software which now empowers 1/3 of the web and almost 40% of all e-commerce websites in absolute sense. And you have WordPress meetups that are really local events. Then you have WordCamps. WordCamps are bigger events in cities, or you have two really big WordCamps. One is WordCamp US in the United States, and the other one is WordCamp Europe. WordCamp Europe is WordCamp Europe is the biggest WordPress event in the world. This year, more than 3,000 tickets were sold. 2,800 people were there, and more than half of them are WordPress developers coming from all over the world. It's a yearly event, and I had the pleasure to be one of the keynote speakers there. So I submitted a talk about WordPress and blockchain and how that could eventually lead to a 100% open source world. And then we launched Wordproof timestamp version 1.0. So after all the testers helped us, thank you so much when you're watching for being a tester. We launched Wordproof timestamp number 1 during the talk of 40 minutes. And that ended with an applause. People were, first I explained WordPress and blockchain and how it makes sense to think of a world operated with the transparency and openness of open source. And then we launched the product, and people applauded at they were so happy, because the message I want to get across there was, hey, you as a WordPress community, or we as a WordPress community, I'm part of it for 11 or 12 years now, on the way we think already, work already, do already, with that mindset, those open source mindset, we can operate the world if we use blockchain as a tool. That's what I want to bring across the message. And then we said, hey, Wordproof timestamp is one of the first use cases. You don't have to invest money. You're not ruining the planet with power consumption. So please get started with blockchain. What we did in Wordproof version 1.0 is a collaboration with Cyberglass and Everything EOS. They made a development course, which we added in the plugin. So everybody, all the developers there, they can install Wordproof timestamp, and they can also start learning it without spending any dime.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's cool to think of, you're at this conference, a WordPress conference. It's, this has been going on for 10 to 15 years. When did it start? WordPress?
When the WordPress conferences start?
Yeah. When did WordPress start? Open source.
I don't have the exact date, but
okay, we won't slow it down with details here. It's been going on for let's say 15 years. This WordPress and these meetups and this open source community, and to come to this point where you're in front of 2,500 people giving a talk about seamlessly integrating blockchain. It's like these two open source communities, like this one that's been around for a bit longer, but them kind of coming together. It's such a natural fit, and it's really big for blockchain, Telos, EOS.io software in general. It's cool to think about how mainstream it's getting. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and it was so cool because I had 10 or 11 questions at the end of the talk, and they were about, hey, isn't blockchain hurting the environment? How do I get started? Really in-depth questions. And because of the EOS.io software we work with, we had great answers to every answer. And so we broke down a lot of barriers which people had in their mind.
So one of the barriers was that it hurts the environment because they're thinking of proof of work. What was another big question that came up that you got to explain? Let's link the talk because okay.
I timestamped all the
perfect
questions and answers. One was about the speed. I'm not sure if that's been asked, but about the transaction speed. Is it fast enough? Let's link the video. There were all kinds of questions. One was, hey, I'm a developer. How can I get started with blockchain development? But all really, really in depth.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we do this meetup in San Francisco. The EOS San Francisco team, we do an onboarding meetup in San Francisco and in Santa Cruz now. And it's so cool. You get these people in a room, and it's like the most gratifying thing in the world when they start asking these questions. Yeah. And with EOS.io, with Telos and EOS, we have an answer. We're like, oh, actually, you don't have to burn a bunch of energy. Actually, the transactions are fast. Actually, it's immutable. It's like you can actually use the blockchain now. It's fun to answer questions about it. So I can imagine. Yeah.
I don't have to present workarounds. I can just tell them this, and that's what I really like. And one of the things, we have 4 meetups already, people organizing Wordproof meetups.
Oh, great.
WordPress meetup. So if you want to, I can do it for you. If you want to do a Wordproof introduction in timestamping, let me know. I'm happy to set up a call or whatever. If you like it, let's make it work.
All right. To you. Very cool. Thank you. Matt Mullenweg, I want to read the quote he said. He said, I think it's one of the coolest things I've seen on WordPress and blockchain I've seen so far. And Matt Mullenweg, I think he's the guy who actually invented WordPress, right? I mean, he's a huge name.
Yeah. He's the co-founder of WordPress.
That's crazy.
2 guys. And I asked him during the Q&A, hey, what's your idea on WordPress and blockchain the coming 5 years? And then I told him about Wordproof timestamp, and he said, yeah, that's in front of the big crowd. He said, I have actually seen it, and it's the coolest thing I've seen so far. So wow, that was amazing.
Yeah, that's a rad endorsement. That's really cool. That's really cool. So right now we have timestamps on Wordproof, and that's going smooth. We're using it at EOS Writer. I mentioned before, we're using it to timestamp our articles, and it's usable. It's actually pretty streamlined right now, which is cool. What's the future? What's phase 2 hold for Wordproof? What's coming? What just happened?
We have specifications until phase 15, but let's do phase 2 first. One of the things my agency, I have 25 WordPress developers working for the biggest publishers. A lot of big publishers are asking us for tools to stamp for them. So that's what we're working on. Number 2, first for WordPress, big WordPress titles, and number 2 for non-WordPress things. And a tool we will launch soon, because my team, the Wordproof team, half of it is development, or half of the production team is development, and the other half is UX. We are really UX focused because blockchain needs UX. And what we will launch soon, might be before the end of July, is try.wordproof.io to let everybody experience the power of timestamping with using a Word token, because everybody can now claim they're free. I already told you Word tokens, and they can just timestamp a document. It's a standalone application. You don't need WordPress. You don't need any content management system. You can just put in text or put in a file and timestamp it with your first Word tokens. It's not new. It's not an amazingly new tool, but it's a UX. The first with we aim to have the best UX. So everybody who's non-blockchain, you can send them there. We will help them guiding in creating a free account, setting up a wallet, and doing their first timestamp. Really an onboarding tool to let them experience the power of blockchain. And it's really a tool to sell it to your boss or sell it to your colleagues or friends.
Yeah, this has been the year of UX, and I love to see that, because all these on-ramps, there's all these companies that are putting beautiful UX out there and making the blockchain seamless. That's what's going to be part of mass adoption. It's not going to be, or it could be one big thing that happens, but it can also be like hundreds of things like Wordproof that are just making UX, and they're just onboarding people on the blockchain without them really even realizing it from all these different angles. So yeah, it's good to hear you guys are so focused on UX, because that's what it takes at this point. We've got a blockchain now. We need people to use it. So
Exactly.
Yeah, it's killer. And you said you're going to timestamp for people. That's UX too. Is a lot of these big companies say they're pumping out a bunch of articles. They don't want to deal with timestamping and keeping track. Just like, please do it for me, take it off our hands. So that's a nice integration for UX too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what do you see? What's the 100% decentralized future that you kind of came to at the end of your talk? What's the end of your talk look like? What's the future look like for all this?
One of the conclusions was that there's always need for leadership. So 100% decentralized is not the most amazing. Then probably we end up without any leadership. Mm-hmm. There's a great quote from Matt Mullenweg in an interview he did for at a conference, and he said, "Hey, you have WordPress.org. That's the open source software, and there's also a commercial. It's called Automatic. It's kind of the block one from WordPress. Okay. And for every $1 Automatic makes, there's $20 to $21 being made in the ecosystem, in the WordPress ecosystem, with the hosting and production agencies, whatever. And so there should be a balance between those two. And but yeah, what I didn't really elaborate on the 100% open source world, because I wanted to give people the tools to start it with. But yeah, there should be a decentralized alternative for social media. Working on it. Voice, looking forward to see what's going on. And there are more initiatives. Mm-hmm. Democratized publishing, we already did that. That's what WordPress is. democratizing finance. Bitcoin saved the people in Venezuela. And now with the EOS software, with Telos, with EOS, we have the tools to move toward democratize everything. So let's see eva.coop for the Uber alternative. I'm applauding every alternative who's making dApps, who are doing the sharing economy right, because the Airbnbs, Facebook's companies are Airbnb. There are a lot of companies, Uber as well. They say, hey, we do a sharing economy, but in the end, it's about optimizing the profit. And we can finally move towards a world where the sharing economy is possible with open source software, with blockchain, with the token economy in the design of the product. So, the ingredients are here.
Yeah, imagine optimizing the ecosystem and the community and the efficiency and and kind of the system, as opposed to optimizing for profit. Optimizing for profit is a great tool for markets to drive development, but the idea to kind of split off in different directions and start optimizing for kind of the system, like this beautiful system as a whole, that's a huge shift. That's cool to be able to start doing that with pieces of the economy.
And that's what I want to do in the WordPress ecosystem. It's open, it's friendly, it's transparent. Of course, it's a community, so there's always buzz as well. But it's a beautiful example of how you could operate software and how you could operate websites. That's why it's so big. WordPress empowers 1/3. The number 2 solution is also open source, only empowers 3%, and the biggest closed source solution only empowers 1.5%. So WordPress is 20 times bigger than the number 1 closed source solution. And that's why I wanted to have my presentation, the keynote for 2,500 people, to be really on the technology and putting down the barriers. It's not about investing ICOs, blah, blah. No, it's not about that. We have the Wordproof tool, we have the learning blockchain development, and you can all start for free to take away every barrier. We're not killing the environment. I was so happy that somebody asked that question. Mm-hmm. We take down all the barriers to get started with, and my hope there is that we can put the people who already have the open source mindset to put them on problems that are bigger than just for content. So Absolutely. It's on for new developers. That's my mission.
Fantastic. Well, we have gone through the beginnings of Wordproof, where Wordproof's at now, what the future holds. Is there anything else that you'd like to kind of cover or bring up as a topic here to talk about as we start to wind down the show?
Let me check. I'd love everybody to, What I'd like to see for Telos is that they work together with every place where people learn EOS development or blockchain development. So the last page where you get your certificate, Brandon, congratulations on learning EOS software. Hey, you need funding so you can work on your project for 1 or 2 months. Sign up for a worker proposal. Mm-hmm. So that's not the enterprise thing they market on. That's also important. And I met Douglas in real life, and I met Jim in real life. That's really cool. They came to a conference in Amsterdam. We're in a panel with Hugo Boss and what was it? Carrefour. That was super cool. So that's the enterprise proposition. But I also like to see how they grassroots, and everybody who starts with EOS development, they already invested some time. If they can get some funds, always at $1,000 or $2,000, then they can build the things they think of. So that would be cool.
Yeah, that is cool. That's so the two ends of Telos is the enterprise solutions, those big giant pictures, big companies, and then the grassroots funded by Telos worker proposals and things that I'm a part of. And I love that. I love that idea, funded by Telos. If you're looking to get something developed or looking to be a part of the community, you have it, and you put something good together, you got a chance to get into a worker proposal. So check that out on Telos for sure. Yeah. I love that. And on my end, if anyone is looking for a proxy, I've got the Mr. Happy Money proxy, where I vote for the best block producers that I've interviewed. I look for people who are transparent, empowering the community, and building together. That's what this is all about. So if you're looking for a proxy, we've got that happening. This is the Telos podcast. I believe it. I haven't checked into this, so it's very possibly the first podcast in Telos history. But we need to verify. I need to go verify that. So we'll be transparent there. I should not claim that until I go make sure. So, And you got any final words for the audience there, Sebastian?
Claim your 100 words for free.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Start timestamping. Subscribe to the newsletter where you will see when the try.wordproof.io is available, so you can timestamp without using any content management system. And we love to welcome you in the t.me/wordproof, the Telegram channel. And I want to thank you again for the opportunity to talk on life, the future, Wordproof, WordPress, everything. You do a great job, man, with your show. Thanks for everything you do for the ecosystem.
Oh, cheers. Well, thank you for coming on. We're all in this together, and cheers, my Telos friends. I will see you next time.
The money is not the prime asset in life. Time is.